it to support those who, through no fault of theirs, are in a very vulnerable state. Mr. Chairman, you know my political beliefs very well, but maybe on this occasion I'll borrow from my friends my friends here. That in this case it is from each according to what he can produce, but to each according to his need. For once, I'll believe in that.
Mr. Chairman, my next is on a very controversial issue, and I hope my colleague will indulge me. Waste management and sanitation. Since the colonial days, and even today in certain parts of the world, in most countries, has been a function of local government. For the past 4 years, we've seen this function being exercised by another ministry, but on the ground, creating problems of environmental sanitation and waste management. Will you try to revisit this issue with His Excellency the President and say, Mr. President, you may have good reason why you created that ministry, but for now, we think that it's creating a gap in the management of sanitation and waste management in the districts. So will you reconsider and get waste management back as a local government function?
NDC. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you agree that the ministries exist to help Mr. President formulate policies, programs, and they have oversight responsibility. At the end of the day, we all work together as a government in the service of our country. It is true that if you go to maybe the regions, you may not have a regional directive for the Ministry of Sanitation. Neither will you have that at the district level. But, Mr. Chairman, I do believe that should not stop us from working together. When the policies come up from the Ministry of Sanitation, we in local government should see ourselves as partners in implementing some of these decisions. I don't think there should be any turf war at all. We should work together, and we should be able to do that. We have this Assembly Common Fund. It's the duty of government. The budget that is prepared on behalf of Mr. President. And so if a directive that budget for this purpose should be given the necessary resources to do that, I do not think that should be. I do not think so. But I'm certainly open for discussions and ideas, but not to go and talk to Mr. President about that.
Another issue that has come up seriously is the role of traditional authorities in local governance. You agree with me that hitherto, even a colonial master saw the wisdom in exercising local governance through traditional authorities. Over the period, their functional role within the local governance system in Ghana now are withered. And I said it creates a lot of problems. I saw the Minister of Health came here and said that they've had problems with building clinics because they have litigation with lands. If the synergy between traditional authorities and local governance have been maintained, there's no way we shall have those problems with getting lands for the construction of hospitals. What are you going to do in order to rekindle that sort of interface between traditional authorities and local government administrations so that together we can work effectively to enhance and speed up development in the MMDAs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to believe that the role of our traditional institutions, for that matter, in national development, in the local government administration, is that even though you read Local Governance Act 936, amended Act 940, you don't see traditional leaders and chiefs mentioned as one would have wished to be there. I want to believe that all leaders in our country at all levels, from the presidency to the unit committee member, we all know the importance and the role of our traditional leaders in national development. And they do play a role, especially at the local government level. Growing up, we used to have the town development committees, and it's almost always the chief or the Odikro who was in charge, and then we have town development committee members and they're all working together. But they still do. I don't want to believe that there's any member of parliament here who will say that because maybe chiefs' role are not well so defined in the system, in our dailies, we do not deal with our chiefs. We do. I also know that almost all district assemblies or district chief executives have the chiefs playing a role in decision making and all that they do. So I think it's a question of, in practice, knowing what is good for us and getting them involved. I know that in my district, because of this, when it comes to budgeting, they move from major towns and groups from villages, and they interact with the chiefs to find out things that they need in their community to help them in the budgeting process at the district level. I want to believe all districts do that. And if they do that, then it's possible for them to interface well with them, so that many of these problems that we face, like getting land for development, still getting chiefs to beat the gong, to call attention to those who are asked to committing this or this sanitation crisis and all that, they still have a role to play. And from what I know, and if I'm to go back to my experience I had in my former Ministry of Regional Reorganization and Development, the chiefs played a major role. They were the moving force, and it is clear, not that we didn't know already, we knew, but it was clear that they could solve many complex, help us solve many complex problems, and were able to help us move very far. And they still do. And I want to believe that any leader, at no matter level, at whatever level you find yourself, should know the important role of traditional leaders, and we should certainly rely on them.
Congratulations, Honorable Nominee. The concept of decentralization, since 1988, PNDC Law 207, to today, to the latest 2016 Local Government Act as amended, the objective has been to develop the local areas and to send development to the rural communities. But it appears that for the past 32 to 33 years of trying to decentralize governance to the local unit, we have not been very successful in terms of ensuring development at the local unit level. If you look at Chapter 20, as you referred us to, and I want to go to Article 240, Clause 2A and 2C, with emphasis on 2C. There shall be established for each local government unit a sound financial base with adequate and reliable sources of revenue. The local governance structure that we have starts with the traditional authorities, election of the assembly members and their unit committee. We have not provided for any financial support to any assembly member or unit committee in our country. The question I want to ask, I know the responsibility is with Parliament, and Honorable Minister, will you lead the call for to ensure that financial provision is made to the local unit as enshrined in the Constitution, so that we don't just elect assembly members and their unit committees, but we also empower them to be financially sound to carry out petty development issues within the communities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, exactly so as my colleague has situated. It is believed that if your power is devolved, the functions, responsibilities, as the honorable member earlier on talked about, and they don't have the resources to back those things, then it's not the real decentralization that we're talking about. And a lot have been written, and as I said, it's a process. We have many experts who have studied the decentralization process. They have the comparative studies in other countries and all that. So it is in line with what Mr. President wants to achieve by emphasizing the decentralization. And that's why I was making reference to all people who have had something to do with this process, academics in the institute, and many others who have written on it. There's a general acceptance that no, we have not reached where we thought we should have reached. And Mr. Chairman, I don't know, it comes to play. If you are a system analyst, any system that you want to query, you want to find out what were the ideal situation, what is it, the purpose of setting up this, why have we not achieved it, what are the bottlenecks, what should be done so as to overcome the bottlenecks in order to be able to achieve the purpose for which the whole process or the whole institution and for the matter business was set up. And as you do, you create a system, then you design method to overcome the problem that you are facing. And I want to believe that that's what we all have to come to that consensus and use that system to analyze the system as it is. Why is the reason that we haven't reached where we should have reached, and how the desired goals have not been met, and what can be done to overcome that. And that's why I said that all the institutions, and as I read earlier on, the role of Parliament is there. There are so many other institutions that have been highlighted in the Local Governance Act, and many others. And there are best practices all around for us to interact with them and then see how best we can move our way forward. But at the end of the day, the resources for the assemblies are known. Can they continue to rely on only DACF? The one they get from what they used to be DDF. Is that enough? And just as a colleague asked here, we quickly list IGF. Well, we know that in some cases the IGF is almost less than nothing. And yet it is put down as some of the sources of fund for the assembly. These are the things that we should all have to come around and look at and see whether we can now take new measures to make sure that there's a sound financial base for the district assemblies, or for that matter, lower government units. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, page 164 of the NPP 2020 manifesto. Page 164 of the NPP 2020 manifesto, under governance, it talks about ensuring integration of various government initiatives: one district, one factory, planting for export and rural development, one village, one dam, and other government initiatives to be considered as core deliverables for MMDAs across the country to stimulate local economic development. How will this be done, and how important is this to ensuring rural development across the country?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, that's what the NPP manifesto in 2020 talks about. And it's talking about we will improve development outcomes through the local government.
Yes.
If you take many of the initiatives that President Akufo-Addo's NPP government started in 2016, these are many of them were based or anchored at the local government level. And it was so important that the MMDAs had a lot to do. Mr. Chairman, take something like PEG, planting for export, and even listen to it, planting for export and rural development. Obviously, this can be pursued best by the government authorities, that's through the MMDAs. The name again, one village, one dam, well situated in the local government area. And then the one district, one factory, many of the produce that have been are coming from the rural area. So the MP professor is saying that, yes, the deliverables expected from the will be the initiative in the core deliverables of MMDAs. I've read a document by those who are managing the pay, and there's a lot of already collaboration between Ministry of Local Government and the Ministry of Agriculture. The planting of nursery program that they had, planting of seedlings for many of these cash crops, and the distribution in my district, they were giving out about 30,000 oil palm seedlings and thousands of coconut seedlings. And all these things are going to help provide and strengthen the local economic development and the local government areas. So yes, it is the case that many of these initiatives that were started in 2016 will be well anchored at the LMDs, and the local government administration ministry, for that matter, is going to work closely with the MMDAs to make sure that the initiatives that were started will improve upon it. The more we produce, if you are producing sweet potato in your area, it helps the local industry that is there, have been established there. It helps the local economy. So yes, a lot of government has been waiting local economic development and all that, but it finally comes to some of the initiatives by President Akufo-Addo's NPP government when they talked about one district, one factory, all the resources that we needed of factory in the factory, once they are produced in the local area, the economy of the local area will improve. When you talk about one village, one dam, it will help in improving the yield in agriculture in the rural area. And once that is done, it not only will it feed the local industry, it also improve incomes of the people living in the rural area. So yes, I think it's the step in the right direction, and that's how we should go.
Gisela.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I gave the floor to Gisela, all right?
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honourable nominee, do you think assemblymen should be paid? Honourable nominee.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Do you think assemblymen should be paid? Assemblymen and women should be paid?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, assembly members, to the best of my knowledge, do not work full-time at the assembly. And many people who also get elected as assemblymen, some of them too also work are paid by government from the same consolidated fund. So I will support any initiative that will enable assembly members interact more with their people, because the whole concept of representation and leadership is that you have been elected, you come to go to an assembly, you speak on behalf of the people. Before you speak on, enable for you to speak on their behalf and articulate their concerns, you should have interacted with them. And when you attend assembly meeting too, you should be able to go back and tell them what decisions have been taken by the assembly. Anything that will enable assembly members be effective in this role, yes. It may not be called being paid salaries at the end of the month, but if they can be enabled to be able to perform these functions, I'll go for that.
Mr. Chair, with your leave, you're talking about advocacy, but the assembly members, their plight is not the advocacy. They come from electoral areas. You are talking about making them effective. Would you put in place a program that would compel the MMDCs to assign funds for specific electoral area needs? Yeah, I wouldn't want to call it common fund, but the assembly members have specific problems in their electoral areas, and they think that the funds that come, they don't really for their electoral areas. How would you want to address that, but to make them more effective as leaders at the local government level?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm open to suggestions. And as I said when my colleague talked about resources to the local government area, for that matter to the assemblies, we can discuss it. But at the end of the day, the basic thing is this. What is in practice now, based on the briefings I've received? Some assemblies pay some allowances to the assembly members, and they pay it from the IGF. Again, if you have been able to raise IGF, then you pay. And there's a table. Others pay so much, others don't get anything. And if they are performing the same functions, why should it be the case that just because you find yourself in a capital city, as for you should get more? And for me, I have about, say, 10 to 15 small villages dotted around the area. And as an assembly member, I have to be going around all these places. They will wait till at the end of that term before they are given a motorbike. So while they are working in the 4 years, how do they even go around and interact with all these people? These are issues that we should look at. And I'll be prepared to lead any discussion that will help them to become effective. Democracy at the base is about representation, it's about advocacy. They should be supported to be effective. And I'm prepared to engage in any discussion that will improve.
Yeah, there. Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'm not done.
I was advised that you have one question. That's what leader said. Anyway, go ahead.
Thank you. How will you ensure quality improvements in our towns, cities, and rural communities in terms of planning, layout, location of kiosks, slums, informal settlements, general zoning? It cuts across in almost every region that a lot of the communities, the assembly, the districts have planning issues. And how are you going to be able to effectively implement the Land Use and Spatial Planning Act 9215 and ensure that this act is properly implemented to the benefit of the district assemblies? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, at the end of the day, the laws are made. We are supposed to make sure they are well implemented to the benefit of the people we serve. And it's about building the capacities of the leadership at various levels. And I'm sure that through continuous improvement of their capacities, many of these things can be achieved. And it's more down to leadership. And I can promise that I will offer the necessary leadership in that regard to make sure that what we have all agreed to be the laws of the land, we shall all follow it, abide by it, and make sure that we get the desired results. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. One question. I'll allow one question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Botwe, I congratulate you on your nomination as the Minister for Local Government and Rural Development. I remember I told you once before that you were appointed to a ministry to discharge a duty within 4 years, and you took 2 years to discharge that duty. So I used to ask you, so what are you going to do now that you have discharged your mandate? I believe you are coming to this ministry with the same level of commitment, if not even more. Just a quick one. The district assemblies have interacted with some DCs, and they have raised some concerns regarding the way and manner some contracts were awarded. And so sometimes they are in their office and there's somebody brings a document and says, oh, I've been given a contract. And it's raised, a number of concerns at the district level.
for some of the DCEs. And in fact, the concerns are so serious that some of the constituents or the residents of the municipality or district believe that some DCEs have gone to do some kululu somewhere and they have brought the contracts to the place. I think this is something that I should bring to your attention and see when this house approves you, how you can bring some, attention to that area so that some of these contracts are awarded at the district level for transparency sometimes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if I got the honorable member right, we are all from district assemblies. In our constituencies, we lobby, go around as members of parliament to get projects for our people. And then the assembly meets, they plan, they budget, and when resources come through their IGF, through common fund and central government, they use it based on the plans that they have. If for some reason the central government have a project and it is brought to your area, I have some difficulty when some people complain about it. Is it the issue that they did not award a contract, or they have a problem with maybe how the contract was awarded in terms about the fact that maybe they could have used X amount to execute that contract, but instead of that they have used X minus Y amount to execute the contract. If that is the case, then I can understand. Other than that, if you came to my constituency in Okre, and beyond what we get from the common fund, central government brings about 5, 6, 10 projects there, I will not be interested in who awarded the contract. Once my people benefit from it, I'll be so happy. So when people begin to worry about who awarded the contract, why is it the case that we didn't award it? Unless the other issue is that maybe based on the plans that they have, which they got through the interaction with the communities, and a project is being imposed on them which they don't need, that is a different matter. But if they need a project and it's been awarded to them and it's been executed, there's value for money, they can get their money's worth of it, and there's no problem with the contract, I'll be surprised that they also have complained about it.
Yeah, Derek. One question. Oh, I thought mine is straight, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity, but because of one. Honorable nominee, in 2018, the Auditor General reported that Metropolitan Municipal District Assemblies mismanaged the common fund to the tune of 120.5 million Ghana cedis. In 2019, it is reported that the figure has increased to 124.8 million Ghana cedis. What do you think must be done to ensure judicious utilization of the common fund in our assemblies?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Audit reports come to this honorable house, and this is something that we should all study and make the necessary recommendations. Mr. Chairman, under no circumstances, the question which the honorable member earlier asked, if we have problem with resources to the lower government units, that they are not getting enough IGF, the common fund that goes there is not enough to carry out the projects they want to carry, then under no circumstance should we allow corruption to grow in the administration of the assemblies, under no circumstances. And I'm sure when we all study the audit report, which I promise we'll study very well, especially with the Select Committee of Local Government, then we'll know some of the infractions and some of the recommendations made in the audit report. And I promise that we shall do everything to make sure that subsequent reports will not have this narration at all.
Hold on, there's none here. Yeah, one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I wish to find out from the nominee if he is aware of a company called Ghana First Limited. Because, Mr. Chairman, I have with me a list of over 1,400 projects that this company is supposed to have carried out in different parts of this country, in almost every district assembly. Indeed, Mr. Chairman, in my constituency, a number of toilets were supposed to have been constructed at Larni, Manayili, and also Kalpohini Market. As we speak, the contractors have abandoned these projects, and I have with me letters of introduction, one signed by Honorable Joseph Kofiada, where in part it says the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources has subjected the facility to technical and financial reviews, and its viability and sustainability is not in doubt. Another one signed by Honorable Obiamwa, Deputy Minister for Local Government, introducing this company to the assemblies to carry out these projects. Ghana First Company Limited, letter of introduction. So this, Mr. Chairman, gave this company the, if you like, believability for the assemblies to deal with. As we speak, like I indicated, the projects have all been abandoned. The communities keep asking when those projects will be completed. And indeed, Mr. Chairman, when the Vice President launched the government tracker, these projects were captured as projects that were under construction. And it is in the government tracker. But the contractors are yet to receive a penny for the work that they have done. So I want to know if the nominee is aware of this company, Ghana First, and if he is not, will he, if he is eventually passed by this House, after this vetting, if he is lucky to be passed by this House, look into this matter and resolve it, not only for the contractors who took loans to undertake these projects, but also for the communities who need these projects in their communities. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as a member of the Select Committee of Local Government, in our interactions ahead of complaints about this Ghana First, and in the discussions, one wasn't sure whether the project is being spearheaded by central government or it is a partnership between some agencies of government and the private sector, or it's purely private sector driven, just that they wanted government to support them one way or the other without any legal agreement between this private company and agencies of government. It's something that we'll have to study, and I will certainly contact the honourable member. And it did not appear in the handing over notes that I have seen so far from the ministry, but you've mentioned names of ministers who used to work in the ministry. They will be available. We'll find out. We will first have to interrogate. Do the people need the projects? what was the funding arrangement? Can something be done about it so that the people can still benefit from the project and so satisfy the earlier agreements of coming from the private sector? It's something that we'll have to study and come to a conclusion. So I promise that there's something that we should all be able to put our heads together and find a amicable solution to it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Yes, Honorable for surgery. Yes, Mrs.
Okay. Related to this, if you are giving the nod, you will be supervising the MMDCs, and they are also responsible for sanitation in the district and the municipalities. How are you going to work closely with the Ministry of Sanitation to end open defecation and also end the huge refuse in the center of towns and our villages, from Botwe to Cape Coast to Jamatin-Poni to Tobodom, to all the villages and cities that you can think of? How are you going to collaborate with the Minister for Sanitation to end open defecation and the poor sanitation generally?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in answer to a question earlier, I talked about the cooperation that will exist between local government, decentralization, rural development, and Ministry of Water and Sanitation. We will work very closely together. Many of the programs and the projects and policies will be routed through, its implementation will be routed through the assemblies. And in the basic functions of the assemblies, the average Ghanaian knows that sanitation is very core in the work of the... we cannot talk about local economic development, and we won't talk about the health of the people and the local area. If there's open defecation, if refuse dams are becoming hills and they are there for mountains for a number of years, it affects the health of the people. Many assemblies are now also promoting tourism. And these are all things that we should all work together to ensure that when we say we want to have governance at the local level, what we want to see at the central level should also be seen at the local level. I can assure the honourable member that there's something that we will take very seriously and work with all relevant agencies to achieve a clean environment in the local government area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Honourable Susu. I hear you get the last one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honourable nominee, one of the major sources of funding for the assemblies is property rates. What I have observed is that we do not have a uniform system across the country for collection of property rates. Somewhere in 2019, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development actually signed a memorandum of understanding with the Land Valuation Division. What is the status of this memorandum of understanding, which is supposed to allow the Land Valuation Division to value properties for the purposes of collection of property rates?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, when earlier on I was pointing to some of these books and programs that have been supported earlier on by various agencies, I was trying to irritate the fact that some of these things have been known. People have always discussed our property rate collection. A lot of people have written. When I talked to the head of the Institute of Local Government Studies, that these are all things that are known, that in the best practices, they rely a lot on revenue from property rate. Why is that we are unable to, as it were, maximize on that? There have been the discussion on the fact that based on some laws, on act from Land Commission Act, it's only Land Valuation Board or authority which can certify valuation of properties. And therefore, if you, as it were, went to anybody's house and said that you want to collect property rate, the person can ask you to refuse because by law it should have been valued and certified by the Land Valuation Board. Whereas in practice there are some assemblies who also collect property rates. I have my property rate bill from Operations Assembly that I pay. Many other people, and you can look into the question somebody posed earlier about the role of chiefs. Once people are sensitized and they know that when they pay property rates, it will improve upon the revenue of the assembly and they will use it to their benefit, they will comply. I don't think people in our areas who are paying property rate are strictly asking the assemblies, have you brought Land Valuation Board to come and value for you to bill me as they have billed me 500 cedis and I have paid. So it's something that we will look at. There have been a discussion, I've read papers which suggest that there should be an amendment to the Land Commission Act. There's also a suggestion that the district assembly should have departments that will take care of valuation. And if the Land Valuation Board is also decentralized, and in all assemblies, we have departments that also undertake this valuation, then it will authorize them to collect these things. Others too have also paid that fine. You may have that one. So if what about after 2 or 3, 4 years, many of the properties have been valued, will the department continue to exist? I've met people who have been working on this thing, and if by the grace of God I get the no, this is something that we all, as it were, will put our hands together, because it cannot be the case that in other dispensations they are able to collect property rate and use it for the development of the local government area, and we are unable to do it. And like I said, it's querying the system, finding out the reason why we are not able to achieve our goal, and designing new solutions to achieve them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my question is on Article 248, 1 and 2. Article 1, 248, 1 and 2. And I want to, with your permission, I want to read the 2. A political party shall not endorse, sponsor, offer a platform to, or in any way campaign for or against a candidate seeking election to a district assembly or any lower local government unit. Mr. Chairman, this is the law, but all of us here know that on the ground that is not what is going on. During assembly elections, we know who is contesting from NDC side, from MPP side, from whatever political party. Mr. Chairman, sorry? And those who are independent. Mr. Minister, don't you think we should look at Article 248, Clause 2, particularly, to allow partisan elections at the district level? The one who objected was the district chief executive, not the assembly election. I'm talking about the elections of assembly members. It was
Honorable Minister, we are waiting for your answer.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry, I thought Honorable Member was.
People are reminding him
trying to reconcile
his position when the matter came up.
reconcile his party's position on that matter. I thought Honourable Member was trying to reconcile with his party position on this issue.
Mr. Chairman, the nominees should know that he is appearing before the appointment committee. And he should choose his words carefully.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, only that I saw his leader, the chief whip, talking to, so I thought maybe he was trying to reconcile the party position. But be it as it may, this is a very real house. So, yes, it comes into the bigger picture of election of MMDCs and assembly in general. Article 55(3) talks about how political parties cannot sponsor people in this assembly elections. And just as 248 also talks about, when Mr. Chairman, with your permission, we can quote Article 55, and Mr. Chairman, with your permission, it talks about the right to form political parties is hereby guaranteed. Every citizen of Ghana or Botwe has the right to join a political party. 55(3), subject to the provisions of this article, a political party is free to participate in shaping the political will of the people, to disseminate information on political ideas, social and economic programs of a national character, and sponsor candidates for elections to any public office other than to district assemblies or local government units. And this is an entrenched clause. And so until this is handled as Mr. President believes that we should do,
They also say that at some point they met you at the conference room, the chiefs and the Joint Steering Committee on the 19th of November 2018. And you told them that it appeared you had been misled by some impersonators and that you'll get the matter fixed. You don't appear to have fixed this matter. It has led to a major disenfranchisement. As recent as the 5th of March 2020, your predecessor, the local government minister, appeared before us. I have the Hansard here, official report of Parliament, Thursday, 5th March 2020, in responding to a question from the Member of Parliament for the area, the Honourable Bernice Adiku Helu. The impression was created that the Botwe Commission had captured the concerns of all the South people and that they were in support of the referendum. The facts emerging from the chiefs and people of South point otherwise, and they say we should blame you, that you are the one who has created this whole mess. Do you agree with the chiefs and people of South? And what do you say in response to all of these allegations they have made against you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I was informed about this petition and the allegations. I have deep respect for our chieftaincy institution, for that matter, our traditional rulers, and I've intimated here the role they have in ensuring that we have an enduring local government system, and how we should allow them to take serious part in it. I've also talked about how the work His Excellency assigned to us in this regional reorganization, which is a very delicate assignment. We could succeed in doing that because of how the chiefs throughout the country supported us and rely on their wisdom and direction. But having said that, it's unfortunate that I will have to state that this allegation is coming out of a deep misunderstanding or it has no basis at all. The process of creating new regions is enshrined in the Constitution. And on a different question, I made reference to Chapter 2 of the Constitution, Article 5, 4 and 5. And Article 5 states clearly the process you go through when you are creating a new region or when you are merging two regions. And I said, Mr. Chairman, permit me to repeat, that this same constitutional provisions, we had it in 1969 and 1972 constitutions. Sorry, 79 constitutions. So we followed it. Petitions were received from citizens who are interested in having new regions. We followed the constitutional provisions. Our ministry facilitated it and worked closely with the office of Mr. President. And as per the Constitution states that a commission of inquiry will be appointed in Article 5.4. That was done exactly by Mr. President. The petitions were studied. All those who petitioned, the Justice Botwe Commission took pains to first meet all these petitioners in Accra so that they could listen to them and as for them to explain their petition. And just as it's stated in the Constitution, they then have to visit all these areas to have public hearings. And I want to believe that the idea behind the public hearing is that it's not as if one chief, because he's a chief of an area, he writes a petition, I want to have a new region. Then it is assumed that all the people support it and then it will be given to them. So they'll have these public hearings throughout the country. After that, they presented their report. Mr. Chairman, this is a process which was transparently done. Transparently. There were people who, even though the chiefs and elders and opinion leaders were fighting for the creation of a new region, there were others who opposed it. And that is why there was nowhere that they had 100%, which means that there were some people who were not interested in it. But they also had their chance to argue their case out and also to finally take part in the referendum. It is never true that people from Akwafu and Lolobi areas were not interested in being part of Uti region and they were forced. Totally untrue. Nothing supports that
Honorable
assertion.
Nominee, let me say that this morning I received what they call rejoinder to the petition filed by Sir D.K. Owusu and Nental Lolobi and Akwafu traditional areas against, purported to present the entire Lolobi and Akwafu traditional areas against prior parliamentary approval upon Botwe. And it is signed by Nana Okra II, Chief Akwafu Mempasem, Nana Amwa Akwafu Mempasem, the Fahine of Akwafu traditional area, Nana Opoku Brompong, Lolobi Division, Nana Alosi, Queen Mother, Lolobi, John Kachiriku, Regent, Akotia Division, Nana Kekrebesi Oboekuma, Lolobi, and Sylvester Eda. And they say that they have always supported the creation of the district and they are not part of any petition which says you should not be approved by the commission. I received it this morning. I've shown it to the leader. So just to address the point you made.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My attention has been brought to that, and I knew that was the case because the petition, as was forwarded to me, was signed by one said K.T. Owusu, member JSC, filed on behalf of the chiefs and people. I would have expected that a chief of Lolobi and the chief of Akwafu will have signed such a letter. But for any group of people to have a letterhead and somebody signed that he's signed on behalf of the people, I'm surprised that it has even been taken that serious. Because, Mr. Chairman, this is the report of the Commission of Inquiry into the creation of new regions, which was published. This Parliament, there was the CI 109 that talked about creation of new regions, the regulations 28 and the referendum. This was laid here for 21 days, and it was clear areas where the referendum would take place. There's no point in time where people said that, no, we don't agree to this, and we are being forced. It's clear. When it comes to Oti region, the places where the referendum is to be held. And Mr. President, this is based on what the Constitution states. In Article 5.4, which I permission, Mr. Chairman, I'll read, where a commission of inquiry appointed under clause 2 or 3 of this article finds that there is a need and a substantial demand for the creation, alteration, or measure referred to in either of those clauses, it shall recommend to the President that a referendum be held, specifying the issues to be determined by the referendum and the places where the referendum should be held. Article 5.4, the Commission determines it. They determine it after all this public hearing and the consultation. Mr. Chairman, maybe it's important to note that there were some areas who also petitioned to be part of new regions. After the Commission's interaction and public hearing, they said no, this area cannot be part of the new regions. Because they did not satisfy the condition of having the demand, substantial demand to be part of the new regions. And this was advertised. CI from this Parliament was stated clearly, Oti region to be created out of Wuta region. The referendum will be held in these places: Biakuya district, Jasikan district, KJB district, Kachi East municipality, Kachi Chumoro district, Kachi West district, and Kwanta North district, and Kwanta South municipality, Santu Kofi, Akwafu, Lolobi, and local traditional areas. Clearly stated, advertised in the CI before the referendum took place. And Mr. Chairman, at this stage, the minister had nothing to do with this. The constitutional process was followed. Commission of Inquiry is empowered by the Constitution Article 5.4. They followed up, forwarded to the Electoral Commission. The CI was laid in this Parliament, and the referendum was held. So there's no point where myself as a minister or the ministry was involved. We are involved in facilitating the whole process, but these are constitutional provisions that they followed. And in any case, at the end of the day, Mr. Chairman, that's why I was questioning whether the chief signed it. An Oti region has been created. The Oti Regional House of Chiefs have been inaugurated. The chief of Lolobi came to Dabai and he swore in as a member of the Oti Regional House of Chiefs. So I'll be very surprised if the chief of Lolobi, Parliament of Lolobi, is behind this thing. Because he has been there. I don't think anybody forced him. He came there and he sworn as a member of the House of Chiefs. And I've also been told that the Council of State elections that were held a few days ago, the person who had been elected to represent the whole Oti region is from Botwe. So I'll be very surprised that these are very emotive issues. There are people who will never agree that there should be Oti region, and therefore they will use all sorts of means. Now, Mr. Chairman, maybe you give me 1 minute to expatiate on this. There was a plebiscite held in May 1949. That was the first one, referendum, when the people of Kachi, who were in the northern hemisphere, in the British-controlled area, wanted to come down to the southern hemisphere. There was a plebiscite. When it was held, we had villages represented by, you have Adele, Adwasi, Ntrobo, Tepa, Akrofu, Nchimuru, and Krachi, they voted. And at the end of it, 342 people voted to come to the south, the delegates, and 36 in the north. Not everybody agreed. But finally, after this referendum, they moved down to the southern part of the hemisphere. Then in 1956, another plebiscite was also held. The people who voted in 1956 in British Togoland was Mamprusi, Dagomba, Gonja, Buemkrachi, Kondo, and Ho. The results are here. And it's of public record. If anybody reads Professor Raymond Bagulu, Benny's book, The Five Vouchers of UDS, who talked about Ghana, regional boundaries, and national integrity, very rich political history, you find out. There are people who did not vote to be part of Gold Coast to become Ghana. But it doesn't mean that after majority of the people have voted and become part of Ghana, you go and say that, well, for us, we are not part of Ghana. The results are here. You can always read. And in any case, in the voting referendum that took place, 85% of those who voted in the Santo Kofi, Apafu, Lolubilipe, voted to become part of Kote region. And that is it. So the petition is totally without any base. The ministry did not determine, did not force anybody. They went through the constitutional process. A commission of inquiry was formed. Their report was publicly published. The process that should go through with the Electoral Commission, it came to this House Parliament. The CI was laid, federally approved after 21 days, stating where the referendum should take place. It took place, and I can assure you, majority of the people there have. In actual fact, Mr. Chairman, I will add that the people from all these five areas were in my office in 2020 to put pressure on through us to Mr. President to let them have their districts. And there are records of the ministers, all the chiefs in Lolobi, the chiefs in Apafu, they all came. And in fact, they have formed their own joint political committee to determine where the capital should be. And when they voted, it was even a deadlock. And they said, well, then they'll leave it to Mr. President to determine where the capital should be. That's even before the districts have been created. And now they are trying to find out where to relate it. Linking it to the voting, the ministry has nothing to determine, to do with who should vote in the presidential election. That's purely the work of the Electoral Commission. It's the Electoral Commission that creates constituencies. The ministry has nothing to do with it. So I don't know why they have to strive so much to try to put our names in this whole exercise. I'm unable to understand it. I think it's totally misconceived and it has no basis at all.
Mr. Chairman, by way of follow, is
Yes.
No, my leader had indicated that I will have more than one. The Honorable Haruna Gisu can confirm. Yes, so let me do a follow-up and then I'll have one more question, Mr. Chairman, under the direction of my leadership. Is the Honorable Botwe telling us that he's not aware of this petition signed by the Chief of Lolobi, the Paramount Chief of Lolobi, Nana Apoto Masachi III, and the Paramount Chief of Apafu, Nana Kofi Edu II, dated 29 January 2018 and 16 March 2018 respectively? I have the stamp of the Commission of Inquiry for the Creation of the New Regions that they received the petitions. Is the Honorable nominee saying he's not aware that the chiefs had indicated strongly that they have not petitioned and that they should be left out of this whole arrangement?
Mr. Chairman, as I've explained, as for whether you be petitioned or not, the process was transparent. As soon as a commission of inquiry was established, the ministry doesn't determine those who will be part of a new region or will not be part. The ministry doesn't determine the places where the referendum should take place. It's the commission, Article 5.4. The ministry does not. So a petition to us or anything is to the commission. The commission received all the petitions that Mr. President received were forwarded to the commission. And that's why they went around the whole essence of the public hearing. And there's a whole list of places which can be made available, Mr. Chairman, to members of what the public hearing that they have. Mr. Chairman, Parliament, members of Parliament, whose constituency fall in all the 6 new regions, we had a meeting with them. In fact, not even the 6 new regions. In the region, for example, we met all MPs from Botwe region. We met all MPs from Western region, all MPs from Botwe region at that time, and all MPs from North region at that time. We met all of them. The multi-leader took a key interest in that. We met all of them as a ministry, and the commission also was in Parliament here at the auditorium, and they met all.
Well, my question is specific.
They went all
to the paramount chief.
Yeah, but you see, again, when you say paramount chief of Akpafu, it might be of interest for you to know that if you get to Akpafu, you will not be able to point out who that paramount chief is. So you should be very careful when you refer to all these things.
Well, I will move to the second question, but certainly the over 30,000 people of South deserve justice.
Don't exceed your boundaries. You have already given more than anybody wants.
No, that was a follow-up. I'm now going to my second substantive
That's
question.
what you get. Yes, Honorable Chief.
Mr. Chairman.
Majority Chief, if you want to ask a question.
No, Mr. Chairman, you are not
restricting the Chief Whips. Yes.
Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Chairman.
Chairman, I asked only one question.
Chairman, let me make an application. I assured you that with Dan Botwe, given the fact that he's been leader of the House, he was not likely to be subjected to the kind of scrutiny that we witnessed. So let me just indulge you. Just take one more for the whip. The whip for the first time. Muntaka will do just one. I agree.
Every other person, one. We agree. Let's not.
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, one harmless question. One harmless question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May you live long.
God has granted me 80 already.
My second one is a simple, harmless question. It appears that in Ghana now we are practicing centralized decentralization. A lot of centralized contracts, sanitation, fumigation, all done in Accra. Recruitment into the schools, the health centers is centralized. How can we really break free, if given the nod, so that we can have proper decentralization, dissolve power, send it to the people at the district so that they can make their own determination on recruitment into health service, education service, and contracting, sanitation, and all of that, so they can hold people accountable. So we move away from this centralized decentralization we are practicing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in my opening remarks, that's what I've been trying to emphasize, that the experts in this have written. I refer to our own Nana Atwata's book, Unfinished Business of Decentralization. Then the more you interact with them, then they have a term called deconcentration, and how it's different from delegation. You know, so I'm studying all this. I'm getting briefed. They said, yeah, fine, you can delegate, or you can have a department of a central body, but it doesn't mean that you are giving it power when you have it in the local government authority. It doesn't mean that you are giving it power to take decisions. You know, so the fact that you deconcentrate doesn't mean that power has really been transferred to them. These are things that I said earlier on, that yes, we shall all meet. There's select committee, local government, the leadership, and the fact that Mr. President chose to use the wording of the Constitution in Chapter 20, where Mr. President said decentralization and local government is not part of the name, means that Mr. President wants us to take it very serious. And I can assure the honorable member that all parliament, all institutions, all experts, we shall all meet and find out and do the analysis why we are unable to reach where the desire goes, and then we'll see how to clear the bottlenecks and get there. Because you cannot, as it were, claim to are decentralized, and yet the people do not have the power to take decisions, they don't have the resources to implement the decisions that they take. I agree with you. We shall certainly meet, discuss it, and see how best to overcome that challenge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. No, minority chief before majority chief. Yes. Go ahead, Honorable Minority Chief.
I have about Dan, 200 questions, okay. 200 questions, okay. 200 questions. I say I have about 200. The chairman, I mean, as former leader and whip, usually doesn't go through because vetting. But on this issue, I just wanted to get some confirmations from the nominee. In an answer to Honorable Ablakwa, I mean, he took us through some of the steps. But do you remember the meeting of 19th November 2018 in the Ministry's conference hall with the chiefs and people of Akpafo and Lolobi?
Mr. Chairman, we have so many meetings, and the records are there. The office keeps records of all such meetings, and they keep minutes of it. And at times, because the people were so excited about the creation of the new regions, when they come, we take photographs. So I'm sure that we can make reference to that.
There's this claim that in that meeting they complained to you that they were not interested in being part of the OT region. Is that?
Thank you. Thank you. I restrained others, so for the first time I'm restraining you.